Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Dunn. I'm the Director of Demand Generation here at Rapid Robotics. This is our second in a series of this year of webinars. Format, again, is very simply 20 to 30 minutes of presentation from Kim Losey, who is our Chief Marketing Officer this time. Really going to be diving into, what is Robotics as a Service, or RaaS, and really, how does it help manufacturers grow? Really going to do kind of a deep dive, looking at how really this whole space has really kind of exploded over the last couple of years. And Kim and her experience is going to really kind of dive into this. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to put them in the Q&A or reach out to me directly. After Kim's presentation, we'll do a brief Q&A. Just to kind of go over some different questions. We do get quite a few questions, so please stick around for those questions because they are, I think, pretty insightful. Kim, are you ready? Let's turn it over to you.
I am ready. Let me share my screen here. All right. Slideshow. Are we good?
You are good.
All right. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's joining us. Thank you so much for being here. I am Kim Losey. As Patrick said, it's true, I am the Chief Marketing Officer here at Rapid Robotics, but I've spent the last 25 years in manufacturing businesses. And I'm, people always sort of ask, like, what is your passion? And I am passionate about helping businesses grow and about making things. I joined Rapid Robotics in 2022 after 8 years at Autodesk, where I was running emerging products, growth, and acquisitions, as well as learning CNC machining in my spare time. So I came to Rapid because I believe in the importance and the potential of manufacturing. And I'm concerned that if things don't change, we're in trouble. But as you may see from my LinkedIn profile, I am an eternal optimist. And so I believe there is so much opportunity, and wanted to share the way we're looking at robotics as a service, because I really do believe that it is a solution that provides a lot of potential right now, especially at a time when, there's some volatility or uncertainty in the market. I think that robotics as a service is a business model that eliminates a huge amount of risk around automation and can really help manufacturers. All right, so robotics as a service, kind of what is it? We're hearing more and more about it, and that is not going to change. So just two headlines, and these are from the past couple of years, not even that recent, but it's becoming more and more prevalent, where we're hearing robot as a service, robotics as a service, RaaS. What is it? It's only going to get to be more prevalent. So I thought it would be great for us to talk a little bit about what we think it means and how it can help you. With RaaS, there's a host of advantages over traditional automation. It can be fast, low risk, low cost. It's a way certainly to eliminate your labor shortages, which are increasingly becoming a major issue for our customers in the manufacturing space. Plus, there's a service and support element that eliminates a lot of the complexity. So for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to give you an overview of a couple of key things to consider. And then, as Patrick mentioned, we'll open it up for questions. But I want to start with what RaaS is not. So RaaS is not one and done. Robotics as a service providers should be long-term partners. Any sort of subscription business, this is really key, in that those providers, they want to be your partner for the long term. We only benefit, or any other service subscription provider only benefits, if the customer is happy. So it's in our best interest to make you happy, to make sure that you're achieving your business goals with our solution, and we want to be long-term partners. RaaS is not a lease. There are businesses out there that are really financing businesses. It's sort of renting a robot. But in our opinion, that is not what RaaS is. Here service is key, robotics as a service. And it is that service element that really differentiates RaaS from what else is out there. It's not risky. There's zero upfront cost, and that can mean zero risk. It shouldn't be complex. There has been, the automation industry has been plagued by complexity, which has made it really out of reach for many manufacturers for years. But RaaS providers strive to provide the simplest, fastest solution to help you achieve that instant return on your investment. And RaaS is also not single purpose. So in some cases it can be, but it doesn't need to be. Flexibility by design or through ongoing consultation is something that drives success. Okay, so what should it be? What should you really be looking for in a RaaS provider? Robotics as a service providers should be long-term automation partners. They should be an extension of your engineering and design team. You want to think about a partner that's providing a consultative approach and think, are you getting the level of support that you need? Is your partner offering solutions to address your problem rather than just looking to drive up the bill of materials that's going to help them? I think that that's really important because there are a number of ways that you can go into a facility and evaluate what can be automated. And there are always multi-million-dollar solutions that can be created, but often there are $100 solutions or ways to adapt existing equipment with very little investment that can make automation almost instant on. So you want somebody who is taking that consultative approach with your best interest in mind. And you want them to be solution seeking. So they're not just there to sell you expensive systems or more robots, but they're really there to help you achieve that instant ROI, as I said. So I think that many of us have seen the images or experienced the images, experienced the reality of the robot graveyard or the closet with robots collecting dust because a project didn't work or it was more complex than we originally anticipated. And so those are the things by finding the right partner that you can eliminate. Next, operating expense versus a capital expense. So traditional robotic automation requires massive upfront investment, and RaaS eliminates that with the predictable monthly cost. So with a RaaS model, there can be, at least at Rapid, there are different providers that provide different ways of approaching this, but there are options with zero upfront cost that can give you that instant ROI and reduced risk. Here's the dreaded robot, an example of the dreaded robot graveyard here. But I think that this, operating expense versus capital expense can be challenging for some companies, especially when they're used to financing big equipment. Now, with interest rates rising, again, with a lot of uncertainty in the production market, capital expense investments are risky. If you just think about hiring a robot the way you hire workers, that operating expense, it can become, much easier, a much easier problem, a much easier way to sort of address the solution without big financial investment. So here on the right of the screen, you see a quick chart that we have put together around there are different prices for Rapid solutions depending on the complexity of your task and the amount of equipment that you're integrating with, but there can be simple, medium, and more complex tasks. But all of those solutions over a 10-year period are still significantly lower than your traditional capital expenditure solution and certainly less expensive than human labor. Next is flexibility. So this is really, in our Rapid DNA. As we started the company a little over 3 years ago, we were really looking at the market, the challenges that it faces, and the why customers haven't been able to automate. And part of that is because of the lack of flexibilities. There's this huge upfront cost, and then you're stuck with a robot that's bolted to your floor, and it's trained to do one task. Now, we believe that leveraging AI, computer vision, and other technologies can provide flexibility that can better address the changing flexible needs of manufacturers. So with things like smart task identification, our simplified automation design, and smart setup. So smart setup is a capability that Rapid has that allows you to move your Rapid machine operator from one task to the other. With setup, you can see the screen image here. There are 3 buttons. It's so simple. The camera really scans a fiducial marker. It recalibrates your robot, and you press start, and it gets to work. So really providing that flexibility. We have a customer here in the San Francisco Bay Area. They do a lot of contract manufacturing in the medical device space. During COVID, they were producing PCR chips. We were doing a degating process, and this customer names their robots. So she called and she said, Nancy is out of work. We no longer have a task for Nancy. We need help. And so we were able to very quickly reprogram Nancy and give Nancy a new job. So Nancy is now working on the AeroPress coffee maker, doing heat stamping. So again, that flexibility is really important and inherent to the service model, where your RaaS provider, you want them to be, it's in their best interest to make sure that you are a happy customer. Next is streamlined deployment. So, it makes me sick to my stomach, really, sometimes when I hear stories of customers that can't find labor, they have to automate, they're looking at operations to automate, and they've got an 18-month wait time, whether it's a wait time for the hardware itself, for the integration, or whatever it may be. We believe there's got to be a faster way. So we have been developing systems to be able to streamline that deployment. And we don't get paid until the robot's working. So for us, speed is essential. So there's digital simulation. We're training these robots with digital twins in advance of them actually even landing in our assembly facility. We're 3D printing a lot of the end-of-arm tooling. We are also partnering with other end-of-arm tooling providers, but in many cases, we can create very quickly, not just prototyping, but production-grade end-of-arm tools that also enhance the flexibility of your solution. I think that this image here on the screen is one for an electronics company that we were working with. We were actually lifting copper plates, and it needed to accommodate 14 different sizes. So we built this end-of-arm tool and the program that would allow the robot to have that kind of flexibility. And all of this has a modular approach, is the way we're able to do it so quickly. So the rapid process, we really like to be able to start to finish. We can deploy robots in a matter of weeks, not months and not years. And then once the robot is on your factory floor, you want to be up and running. Nobody has time for additional downtime or 6 weeks to install a robot. So rapid machine operators show up on your floor, ready to work in a matter of hours. Okay, cloud connected scale. So manufacturers get the benefit of a connected robotic fleet. Software is always up to date and new capabilities come free. So again, when you think about the difference between renting a robot is one thing. That's sort of like the way you would finance the hardware. Robotics as a service, actually, the service component is really important. And with all of these robots being cloud connected, we're able to identify problems before they might even start. So this cloud-based performance monitoring. We have one customer who is printing disc golf discs. And we saw some anomalies in the data and reached out and actually found out that there was an issue with their pad printer. It wasn't the robot that was the issue, it was the pad printer that was the issue, and we were able to identify it before they even did. So again, a robotics as a service provider can give you that added insight into your business. And because all of these robots are cloud connected, as a partner like Rapid is training the robots to do new tasks virtually, they all of a sudden become available to you as a customer. So we have recently started boxing and palletizing capabilities. So virtually through this cloud connected system, we are able to very quickly train robots in remote locations so that they can be adapted for new capabilities. Now, of course, there are end-of-arm tooling and other requirements to make that shift, but it's possible, and you're not stuck in that fixed robot graveyard situation that many manufacturers have been in the past. And then there's constant performance improvements that also are part of that. Unwavering support. So robotics as a service removes the burden of ownership and provides always-on support that ensures maximum utilization and minimal downtime. So I think this is critical. Anyone in the manufacturing space, knows this. I've told many people this story, but one of my first jobs was at a pulp and paper machine. I worked in the spare parts room, and my father was in charge of, he was the CFO, the controller of that facility. And so the workers would come to the window and say, I need this 2-inch coupling and I don't know, they had a whole list of things. And I was just thinking like, oh my God, every minute that machine's down, we're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've got to get this fixed. So we all really understand, the problems that come with downtime. So we want to be able to provide 24/7 remote support for our customers and for our robots. We have remote diagnostics and correction, and then on-site immediate remediation. So 98% of the support tickets that happen can be resolved within an hour remotely. We don't even need to come on site. There are other cases where we do need to come on site, but we're able to diagnose the robots before we even get there. So in some cases, if we, maybe there's a joint that's broken, we know that before we come to your facility, so we can come with a new robot that's pre-trained and swap it out. We don't have to, schedule an appointment and then show up a few weeks later, figure out on site what's wrong, bring the robot back, then you could be down for weeks, which nobody can afford. So this on-site immediate remediation is a benefit of the cloud connected fleet, but also robotics as a service and the model. Okay, so that's what RaaS is not and what RaaS is. And this may be, preaching to the choir here, but why it's critical to start automating now. I can't even tell you the number of presentations or meetings I've gone into, and we'll say to the crowd, how many of you have a 5-year automation plan? Let me see your hands. Everybody raises their hands. And then we say, how many of you started your plan 5 years ago? And almost all the hands get raised, and nobody's made any progress because it feels so big and so overwhelming. And so with robotics as a service, it doesn't need to be so big and overwhelming. I think if you can start from the bottom up, just get started, you can begin to chip away at this problem. And the problem, while all of us sort of feel it individually, you feel the labor crunch in your own facility, it's probably bigger than you think. There are 865,000 unfilled machine operator jobs in the US today. But what's really scary is the average machine operator is 48 years old. So with mass retirements happening in the next 5 to 7 years, I think the statistic right now is for every 10 machine operators that retire, 1 new person comes into manufacturing. So there are many people out there that are doing amazing work to try to bring young people into the manufacturing space, which is one way to solve part of the problem. But we've also got to figure out how to start automating now, because that worker shortage is projected to be 2.2 million by 2025 and up to 4 million by 2030. And then we're looking, of course, at annual wage increases for a machine operator and all of the other more hidden costs of the labor shortage that's impacting businesses. And then a little bit about Rapid. So as I mentioned, we've been in business for a little over 3 years. We are based in San Francisco, but we also have offices in Novi, Michigan, and in Austin, Texas. We have robots that have been running for 1,000+ days. We have, more than 100 experts. We've saved customers millions of dollars. We're deploying dozens of robots a month. It's our goal to get this to thousands of robots a quarter, hundreds, that would be hundreds a month. And then the production, the quality, many of our customers are also doing inspection tasks where robotics just make it so much more consistent and accurate, that's helping their businesses thrive. And then we are backed by some of the world's largest VC firms. And that brings us to 10:21 Pacific time.
Wow, you did
And I
really
can
well
hand
there,
it
Kim.
over
Thank you.
to Q&A.
So any questions anybody has that they'd like to bring up? Go ahead, put it in the Q&A. We'll give that just a moment or two.
I was going to say, there's no way that was so clear that there are no questions. Come on.
There we go. We got one.
Yes. The robots can use suction as a way to pick things up. There are a number of types of end of arm tools that we can build to pick things up or to do different things. So suction is one way. We have, pinch grippers, we have custom grippers, that operate in a number of different ways. We have some that are doing ultrasonic welding applications, and they need to sort of mechanically fit inside of a component and then extend out so that it grips it in that way. So sort of a pressure grip, and then it moves it to the ultrasonic welding machine.
This question just came in. You talk a lot about flexibility. This person's experience is that they need to be programmed for a really specific task. Can you share more about what that flexibility looks like?
Yes. So, I mentioned a little bit about Nancy, who got trained for a different task. But a lot of the tasks, I think going back to sort of the old way, the traditional way of automation, there were these big capital expense intense projects. You would buy a robot, you would hire an integration team, they would train the robot to do that one task, and then they are available if something goes wrong, but that robot is trained for that one task, and it just ends up being really restrictive. So when we're using digital twins and this more modular training approach and the rapid software stack to be able to train these robots, we can pretty quickly train them to do a variety of different, more simple tasks. I think this is also a function of the traditional way of thinking about automation. You think about these big projects where, you're not afraid to spend $1 million on something. So you bring in a robot, you bring in a team, you build this whole system. But the reality is, when you have a worker shortage, if you're just looking to free up human labor so that your human labor can do the really value-added tasks, there are a number of very basic manufacturing tasks that can be quickly automated, and that do provide you that flexibility. So maybe you need to extract molds from an injection molding machine. You need a robot to tend that machine, and then you need to move your robot so you can clean your injection molding machine. You can move it. You can move it back, you can scan it, and then, that provides additional flexibility that was never there before.
Now, you talked about CapEx expense and installation with the, robots as a service model. Can you give an example of approximate monthly cost of an installation?
Yes. So again, it sort of depends on the way Rapid approaches that. Really depends on the complexity of the project. But if you have let's say, it could be a fairly simple task. Maybe there's a setup cost in the first year, and then there's the annual subscription, which can be paid monthly. So let's say your annual subscription for a simple task is $35,000 a year, and then that gets broken down on a monthly basis. So you have 35,000 divided by 12, so a little under $3,000 a month. And then if you think about that, we often help sometimes customers think about how does that compare to to human labor, if you're thinking about working with your finance team to just, where does the money come from? There is typically an operating budget for human labor that you can apply, to the robot, just so you're paying that robotic worker the same way that you're paying a human worker. And many times human workers, the fully burdened labor rate varies by market. So you want to think about what that fully burdened rate is, but then you also want to think about the cost of sick time and overtime and, third shift and second shift premiums. We have a customer recently, Barron's, also a Minneapolis-based customer. They make metal pails. One of the added benefits of automating their line was that the robot started to then pace the human workers. So their throughput increased significantly within each shift.
Does Rapid provide an on-site evaluation of a project?
We do. So that's part of our process. We think about our people, our process, and ultimately our results so that we're delivering results for you, the customer. But the process starts with an initial quick discovery call, really to understand what your needs are, which operations are you looking to automate, where do we think the biggest, fastest return can be. We then come to the facility and we'll do a factory walk with you to understand. We look holistically at the space. So sometimes customers will come to us with a very complex task and say, this is what we're looking to automate. And what we've realized is, often that can be automated, but it might take a really long time or be really expensive. If you look at the goal, really freeing up human labor, we often find there are 4 or 5 tasks on the floor that can be automated in weeks. So you can then move that labor to the more complicated task and you sort of build your automation transformation in that way. And that's what we think about when we say bottoms up. That's what we really are thinking about. It starts with that factory walk and discussion about what your needs are and how do we solve it in the most cost-effective, time-effective way.
Now, this question's come up a few times is, from the service technicians, question came in, how many service technicians do we have throughout the United States, Mexico, and Canada? But I think we really bring a different solution. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Kim.
Yeah, so we have, as I said, 98% of our tasks can actually be solved, from our San Francisco or Michigan offices without leaving the floor or leaving our office or leaving our homes in some cases, because we are available 24/7. If we do need to be on site, we have a fleet of people to make sure that we can get to your factory for an on-site remediation by the next shift. So again, it's not like call and wait, to get on our calendars. We guarantee that, next shift availability to be able to deploy people. So we make sure that we have people stationed in the United States within a flight of our key markets.
You talk about flexibility, you talk about speed. And we hear this question a lot too, is, how fast can I be up and running once, once we place the order? I mean, is it months, years? I mean, do we gotta?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, we always joke about, we're Rapid Robotics for a reason. We can do this quickly, and we'll talk to customers and they'll say like, I'm ready to move fast. And we're like, okay, great. We can be there in 3 weeks. And they're like, whoa, not that fast. Don't be crazy. But it does, it depends on how long it takes, how flexible the team is. And I think really engaging, a good tip is engage your decision-making team early, because you don't want to be in a situation where, maybe you're the line manager, maybe you're the plant manager, and then, you're ready to go. We put together a proposal. We come, we do a factory walk. We have a proposal for you in a week. We have the robots through simulation, fully trained. They can be ready to deploy a couple of weeks later. But all of that actual deployment kicks off once the contract is signed. But the challenge that we find occasionally is that if you're potentially your HR team, potentially your finance team, potentially your ownership team, if you're in some sort of, complex ownership structure as a business, if those people don't know what's going on, they can be caught by surprise at the last minute and be like, well, wait a minute, why wouldn't you just buy the robots? And then you're kind of starting from scratch. And it's again, we're there as your partner to help articulate the rationale there, but it's better if you bring those people in early. It helps you move faster and streamlines the whole process. So again, sorry, Patrick, that was a complicated way of saying, it can be weeks, and there are ways to really simplify and streamline that. It can get a little more complicated when you're integrating inspection equipment, or, we all know the challenges of supply chains right now. If you need additional conveyance equipment, that's on back order for 4 weeks or 4 months, that complicates things. But we do everything within our power to have a number of modular solutions to streamline this, so we can literally get you up and running in less than a month.
Another question really about, is there certain processes, or, the question is low-hanging fruit for companies just starting with robotics? Where should we be looking?
Yeah, I think, one of the first things that we advise customers is to look at your production, look at your operation. What are the tasks? Again, not the most complicated tasks. If it's hard for a human, it's hard for a robot. So it doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's hard. So it's not fast, and it may not be inexpensive. So the way to start is to look at your high throughput production. And then you want to look at your number of operator shifts, because you are going to want to make sure that even though the cost of human labor is rising, that your return on investment is there instantly. So if you're paying, for example, $3,000 a month, what does that look like on an hourly rate, depending on the number of shifts that you want to run? So you kind of look at that. What is the high throughput items? You also want to look for repeatability and simplicity. And I think this is where it's always been in traditional automation, for systems integrators that are coming in, and, people are looking for lights out facilities. It's a great goal, but it's really, that's going to be a long time to get there. And in the short term, you could spend, you could have a robotics as a service partner or an agreement for 2 years, and you can be saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in that time frame.
Great answer. Some of the questions are,
I guess I have one more piece of advice there, really, as you think about what to automate. So not only the volume and the shifts, you want to kind of look at the structure. The more structured things are coming into the input and the output, the easier and faster it is to automate. So I've heard examples of, customers who've come to us and they said, oh, I just, got this quote for $1 million for this thing. I'm trying to pick these items out of a bin and pick them up and pad print them, or whatever operation. I got this whole estimate. I've got this now upstream process that I need to automate. And then we'll kind of say, well, wait a minute, what if you could present them to the robot in a different way? Could you do this? You could build this $500 fixture and have your operator, who's over here doing this stuff anyway, make sure that's reloaded every hour, every 30 minutes, and so for $500 versus $1 million, and probably months of integration versus a few weeks of integration, I think that makes a really big difference. So think about structure and the presentation of your parts.
Couple of questions I'm just going to kind of roll into. One is, about the robots themselves. I mean, do we work with specific brands of robots? I mean, or cobots that can work in different environments, let's say medical? Is there a rating system we use? So from a vendor perspective, who do we use?
Yes. So we are working with a number of hardware vendors, and we are trying to be very hardware agnostic so that we can solve the problems for the customers in the most effective way. We are, we haven't actually announced this publicly, but it's fine. We are working with Universal Robots, for some of our cobots. We have a new industrial application that is coming out with Yaskawa. So a number of different robots to be able to achieve the goals of our customers, whether they're looking for, again, very simple pad printing, or they're looking for a more a longer reach to be able to get into an injection mold machine, or for palletizing. You know, we need to be able to have that additional 7th axis to be able to go up. So we have a variety of options depending on what the customers need.
I'm just kind of scrolling through here. We got quite a few.
Okay. Oh, I do see in this one, we do work a lot in the medical device space. Our robots right now are not designed to be washed down. I do believe that there are solutions sort of in the works to be able to address that. We do have robots though that are working in clean rooms and that are doing ionized clean off, dust particle removal, and a number of things like that.
Is there a minimum?
There is no minimum. No.
Okay.
Nope. We do. You know, we work with customers of all scales, and we typically our contracts will be. I mean, I guess the minimum would be. You know, we ask for a 2-year service agreement, but there is no. You know, we'll deploy one robot if that's what you need.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what the question was going for. Any other questions? If I missed something, I did reach out to several of you privately. So if you did have questions, just to kind of, you know, but if you do have other questions, that kind of stuff, I will be sending out an email with this presentation so you can view it again or share it with other folks. And feel free to reach back out if you have specific questions that we weren't able to answer or that just popped into your head after the presentation.
Oh, let me. I think I'm supposed to share my screen here. Sorry, I'm falling behind.
Oh, yes.
Here we go.
Hey, yeah, there we go. Go ahead and just, if you want, you can also scan
the QR code.
Scan the QR code and just you know, put in a thought, or you know, if you got questions or want to set something up to talk a little bit more in depth for what you guys are looking at, we can go ahead and do that. Again, look forward to, we'll be doing one more in February, another webinar, another great topic. We'll only be doing one in February, but we'll be doing, oh, there we are. Thank you. Boy, you guys are way ahead of me. Is there another slide that I'm not aware of? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think this is it.
That's it.
This is it.
Again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to myself, Kim, anyone on the team. I'd be more than happy to help you out. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.